at least not. People did not exist before 1681. Again, white people did not exist on. People did not exist before 1681. Again, white people did not exist on planet Earth until 1681. Number two, any claim that this group called white people, any claim that that group is rooted in biology or derived from genes or biology or is innate or is from nature is a lie.
Okay. Now, this woman on this video, her name is Jacqueline Badalora, and she's very knowledgeable about so-called black and white history, because black and white are social constructs that were created in 1681 to stop white women from marrying so-called black men or tawny brown skin individuals of the Indian and Latino races. Okay? Because these white women would marry them, and marriage in the Bible is to have sex with them. So after these women would have sex with these individuals, they felt so enamored and so obligated to that man for this sexual gratitude that they chose to divorce their white husbands that were more like boy lovers from Athens, Greece. Like it says in Romans chapter 1, verse 26, men with men working that which is unseemly, receiving in themselves their recompense of their error, which was meat, where they push and shove. Oh, Bobby Joe, it feels so good. Oh, just stick it in there, Chad. Nasty motherfuckers. Right? So the women leave that shit alone and get with real men. Okay? They were enamored by all of this musculature and veins popping out and beautiful brown skin. They were shook. She's going to explain that shit. Shalakia, she's going to explain that in this movie or video. Anyway, I wanted to put out fair use. Uh-oh. That's right. I got to go get a fair use thing. Let me see if I can go get fair use. Where is it? Oh, there you go. Boom. Oh, man. Okay. Fair use. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act of 1976 is a statement used by content creators to assert that their use of copyrighted material is consistent with the fair use provisions of the law. Right? Okay? And that's what I'm doing. Okay? All right. Fair use. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit educational or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay? Now let's get back to the video.
Biology or is innate or is from nature is a lie. Third and final point. As a matter of foundational law, actually let me say it this way, white supremacy has been embedded in the United States of America from its founding as a matter of law. Now, I don't expect you to buy all that, to get all that, to believe all that, at least not now. But my job is to share with you the legal history that proves each of those three claims that I begin with. So let's go. Let's get started.
We heard you. 9 years of bring back the snack wrap and you've won.
Shalakia.
But maybe you should have asked for more.
You know?
Say hello
Come on,
to the Hot Honey Snack Wrap. Now you've really won. Go to McDonald's and get it while you can.
We have to begin this conversation in colonial North America, specifically in the colonies, the British colonies of Maryland and Virginia. Both were British colonies, and both shared a number of particular characteristics. First, their economies were rooted in tobacco farming. If you know much about tobacco farming, it requires tremendous human labor. Lots and lots of workers. So those who owned large plantations, big landholders, constantly needed laborers to do the work to grow the tobacco. In addition to sharing an economic base, both colonies had an incredible gender imbalance. Roughly 10 men for every woman. Now, let's understand a little bit about the folks who constitute the people in these two colonies. Oh, and by the way, let me give you a year. We're in the early 1600s, okay? The early part of the 17th century, colonial North America. England had, for some bizarre reason that today demographers cannot explain, there was a population boom in England in the early 17th century. So there were lots and lots of poor British people who were on the public doles, who couldn't find a way to make a living, who couldn't feed themselves. So the king in England was quite happy to have them sign a contract of indenture to then go work in the British colonies. And that is what happened. Both indentured and enslaved persons, according to historian Edmund Morgan, were sold and traded like cattle. But of course, not all laborers stand equal in terms of their labor agreement or lack thereof. Those who came under a term of indenture worked for a term of years, and presumably this indenture was an agreement that they chose to enter into. The terms of indenture were largely protected by British law, although
Okay, now you see where these Edomites get off talking about blacks sold blacks into slavery, and blacks sold themselves into slavery. They put chains around their own neck and sold themselves. This is where they got the slavery of the capture and kidnapping of indigenous populations of peoples and intermixing them with the people that came over here, as opposed to as I said before, as opposed to the people that came over here willingly to be input in slaves. And now remember, the woman said, Miss Badalora said, she said, because she's already done the research, she's showing you the research that she's done, that these individual so-called white people came over here, okay, willingly, and indentured themselves as indentured servants. The modern day word for indentured servant is employee. That's the modern day words for indentured servant. That's an indentured servant. You actually loan out your labor and your back for a wage. That's what indenture is all about. Getting a fucking job. Okay? So they had a job fair, pretty much, in the British Isles. Okay? And from the British Isles, and sent the so-called white people over here on a job fair, and put these individuals in positions of power over the slaves that were kidnapped, over the individuals that were already here, that were enslaved and in chains put around their neck. You had the tribe of Gad, the tribe of Reuben, and the half tribe of Manasseh that were already in these lands, inhabiting these lands for over 2,000 years, 3,000 years actually, before Amerigo Vespucci, before, okay, the Vikings came here and all this other miscellaneous bullshit. Because King David had a seafaring captain by the name of Hiram Abiff, right? And he was a Hamite from the land of Canaan, okay? And Hiram Abiff, being he was King Solomon and King David's seafaring captain, it took him 18 months to get from the area of Israel and sailing around the Horn of Africa, what is called Africa today, to come into Central and South America, where they got gold, peacocks, horses. They got all kinds of good stuff from over here, man. Okay, and Hiram Abiff had 3 different continents to take all this stuff from. Gold and diamonds were just popping up out of the ground. They were just like pretty pieces of metal to put around your neck. And when the Edomite white man got over here, Cristobal Colon, he saw that the Indians were wearing gold, big ass pieces of gold and diamonds around their neck, like it was okay, on a fucking string. Oh no, we gotta kill these motherfuckers. Okay, let's go get it, because I got proof of that. I sure do. Yep. Let me see. It should be down here. Yep. Got proof of that. I'm like, wow. Sorry about all these pictures. But I think this is it. Is this it? Slovakia. I think it might be my other picture list. Right? Okay, let's put this picture up. Check this out. Right? I come in peace. Imagine being a Native American in 1492 and seeing this bizarre thing step off a ship. Okay? All right, check this out. What Christopher Columbus says about the Native Americans. They are simple and honest, and exceedingly honest with whatever they have, none of them refusing anything they possess when he is asked for it. They exhibited great love towards all others in preference to themselves. They are the best people in the world, and above all, they are the gentlest without knowledge of what is evil. Nor do they murder or steal. They love their neighbors as themselves, and they have the greatest thought in the world. Right? Or the sweetest heart in the world. Always laughing. They would make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want. In 1492, Christopher Columbus discovered America. How the fuck does that work? This Edomite Caucasian devil did not discover a place where people already existed on the continent. How the fuck does that work? If they're supposed to be savages that couldn't read and write, why are you calling them the sweetest people on the face of the earth? Why are you saying that they love their neighbors as themselves? Why are you saying that they give you whatever you want if you ask for it? Only God's chosen people do that. What did Yahushua say? Okay, Edomite motherfuckers. That's what I don't like about you devils. You sit up there tell a goddamn lie so good, everybody believes it. All right. Love thy neighbor, right? Okay, I misspelled neighbor clearly. All right, I'll just do it like that. Boom. Hold on. Right, Matthew 22 and 39. Salakia. Okay. Yahushua said unto them, let's do this. And Yahushua said unto them, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Right? That's basically what Christopher Columbus was saying, right? That's what he said. Right? They exhibited great love towards all others in preference to themselves. They are the best people in the world, and above all, they are the gentlest without knowledge of what is evil. They do not murder. They do not steal. Right? Thou shalt not kill, which is one of God's laws. Thou shalt not steal, right? And they love their neighbors as themselves. These are commandments handed them by the Son of the Most High God in heaven. Clearly, these people were God's chosen. Okay? But what did Christopher Columbus want to do, man? They would make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want. Who financed the slave trade? You guessed it. Bibi Nothing Not a Jew and the rest of them Sephardic Jews. Okay? That's what Bibi Not a Jew is. He's one of those Sephardic Ashkenazi Jews. He's either Sephardic or Ashkenazi. Right? That's who financed the slave trade. Right there. Off of motherfucking Fox News. Okay?
Terms that took form in colonial North America were quite different than those that existed in England. For example, in England, indentured servants could marry because that was viewed as the way to produce the next group of workers. In this country, indentured servants were prohibited from marrying, and if women were unfortunate enough to get pregnant during their term of indenture, they added usually about 7 to 9 years onto their term of indenture and 1 year to the father. Slavery, of course, was a status that came with life, work for life. There was neither British law nor international law to prohibit or restrict slavery. What we do know is that at this time period in colonial North America, there were free persons of African descent. We know that landholders freed slaves. They did so in wills. They did so by allowing them to purchase their own freedom or the freedom of a family member. The vast majority of workers, laborers, in colonial North America at this time were British men, British workers, the vast majority. There were some women, there were some European laborers from Portuguese, Dutch, folks from Ireland and from Scotland are also revealed in the records, but the vast majority were British men. There were small numbers of persons of African descent, and there were even smaller numbers of members of native tribes. But in this slide, I'm trying to capture the socioeconomic ladder, and really that ladder should be about as long as this room. The landholding elite are, in today's parlance, that's the 1%. And the vast majority of folks who were in the colonies were laborers. Again, they were British, other Europeans, Africans, and members of native tribes. Here's what I find folks have the most difficult time with. We tend to really struggle with getting a good picture of social life, the social context at this juncture. We're very good at understanding the social relations that exist later, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But pre-Bacon's Rebellion society is something that we generally in this country struggle to grasp. So I'm going to do my best to paint a broad stroke picture of this time period. What we know is that British and African laborers worked, ate, and slept together. Furthermore, the evidence from this period, which covers the first 3/4 of the 17th century, that the anecdotal evidence reveals that they lived under similar conditions and faced the same opportunities and chances to make it once one was free of their term of service, whether free of enslavement or free of indenture. So let's review this. British laborers constituted the vast majority of the populations in both colonial Maryland and colonial Virginia. all men, of course, because the law of coverture, let me tell you something about that law of coverture. The law of coverture is derived from British common law, and it structures marriage. And this is how Barrister Blackstone famously described the law of coverture. In marriage, the man and the woman become one, and the one is the man. You didn't have the right to retain your own wages. You couldn't create estate planning, wills, or trusts without the approval of a man. So all men who were free of indenture or enslavement faced the same opportunities in these colonies as a matter of law. For example, free men of African descent could own servants or slaves, and they did. They could vote, and they did. They could marry persons of the opposite sex. God, and I love that I have to make that qualification now. Woo! They could marry persons of the opposite sex regardless of national origin, and they did. In fact, marriages...
Now, she's going to go into how white women were marrying these free slaves, and these already free slave owners, or that were free from indentured enslavement, and most white women were leaving their husbands, getting a fucking divorce, right, from the white man just to get with the black man, you know? Okay? So that's how they created the structure, the social constructs of black and white, and put black on the slaves and put white on the indentured servants. Well, on themselves, as far as the elites, the vast majority of what she had said. Now, you also have the indentured laborers who were mostly British, mostly white, right, so-called, okay, and told them, the elite at the top told them that it was okay for them to be named white just like them, if you help us keep these blackies and these darkies in control. So then you have slave owners, you have overseers, stuff like that, that were white, and they became slave owners. So it's going to go over all of their history. See, everybody got history fucked up.
Between men of African descent and women primarily of British descent were not uncommon at all. In one county, 1/2 of the free men of African descent were married to a European woman. There was a challenge to these marriages, but it did not come from the masses. It came from elites, and that's what we're going to talk about next. All right, this little depiction is meant to be a depiction of the lawmakers in Maryland, colonial Maryland lawmakers. They passed a law in 1664 punishing, and I quote, British and other freeborn women who marry enslaved Negro men. The punishment for entering into these marriages was that the woman herself would be enslaved for her husband's life, and any children they have would be enslaved into their 20s. Now imagine that you are a plantation owner. That's not a bad deal. I get more property. I like that. And that is exactly what happened. Rather than deter these marriages, which is the express intent of the law of 1664, rather than deter them, these marriages were encouraged by property owners, because that, in fact, that such a marriage increased their property value. This law of 1664 represents, if not the first, certainly the precursor to anti-miscegenation law. These are laws that punished or prohibited marriage between, notice that white people didn't exist yet in 1664, at least as referenced in that law. But most generally speaking, anti-miscegenation law prohibited and punished marriages between a white person and a specific non-white person or persons. Let me be really clear. I read all the time in history books, in academic texts, and I read anti-miscegenation law described as prohibiting interracial marriage. That's not correct. For example, a member of a native tribe could marry a person of Chinese descent. Both were understood as racially distinct, but never did anti-miscegenation law prohibit such kinds of marriages. The only marriages that anti-miscegenation law prohibited were those between a white person and always a person of African descent, and sometimes various other groups. Okay, so just so we're really clear about anti-miscegenation law and its link to whiteness. A couple other things to note about anti-miscegenation law. It's not derived from British law. Anytime we look at law and study history and you see a break from British common law, you always want to pay attention, because it tells us something about the needs and desires of those who wielded power in the colonial context. So anti-miscegenation law was one of these laws. They were passed colony by colony and then state by state. It's a really important area of law for a number of reasons. But for our purpose this morning is because it's where this human category called white first appears on planet Earth, the first time. In addition, anti-miscegenation law is important because it lasted more than 300 years. These anti-miscegenation laws literally shaped the faces of this group of more than 2,000 X number of people that I'm looking at today. The Maryland legislature sought to correct for the encouragement of marriages that they described in that previous law of 1664 as, quote, a disgrace, unquote, to the British people, as an indication that the, quote, British or freeborn woman must be forgetful of her status as free, end quote. So they passed the law of 1681. And in this law, it made it illegal for British and other white women from marrying a Negro slave. And furthermore, the law punished any landholder who encouraged the marriages and any religious authority who performed it. This law equals the invention of the human category white. Did these group of laborers, some of whom were from Portugal, some from Holland, some from Ireland, Scotland, did they have a little genetic transformation that occurred right after the General Assembly in Maryland met, creating a genetic sludge that we can now call white? Virginia passed its first anti-miscegenation law in 1691. In Virginia, the law prohibited both white men and white women from marrying a person of African descent or a member of a native tribe. But lest I leave you thinking that gender equality was being created in this law, let me quickly dispel that. Studies of antebellum courts reveal that, in fact, anti-miscegenation law was that, at least in the language of the law, prohibited these marriages for white men and white women. But here's what we know from antebellum court cases. We know that plenty of white men married and or engaged in intimate sexual relations with prohibited women. However, very rarely were they brought to court and punished under the anti-miscegenation law. Very rarely. So here, pay attention to this. This law, in its enforcement, is largely focused on controlling the relationality and the sexuality of white women and non-white men. Furthermore, think about the enforcement practices that come out of this particular law. What's the result? Who becomes more available for who? We see a further step in locating patriarchal power squarely among and within white men. We've talked about the law of 1664 and the amendment to that law in 1681. And we've noted that the key difference between those two is the reference to the group who's of concern. The language has shifted from British and other freeborn to British and other white women in that particular law. So the question becomes, well, what the heck happened between 1664 and 1681? And the answer is Bacon's Rebellion. This was a massive revolt in the colony of Virginia that lasted more than a year. Let me give some background of the seeds of this rebellion, what helped give rise to this violent outburst. Those who were enslaved, I don't think it's hard to imagine, were by definition of their status disgruntled laborers. And remember that pool of readily available workers from England who were poor and happily sent off in the guts of ships? Well, they dried up. That population surge ended, and there was no longer a pool of laborers from Britain available to handle the work on the plantations in the colonies. The result is they began to impose harsher punishments on indentured servants who were already here, so that relatively minor infractions would result in significant extensions to their years of service. Those who completed their term of indenture or who were released from their status as enslaved were frustrated. They were frustrated because the King of England gave almost all of the farmable land to his buddies. And even if they could find land to grow tobacco on, prices dropped and taxes went up. So land and other opportunities became much more limited. So this guy, Nathaniel Bacon, the guy pointing his arm, he didn't have to search very far for disgruntled laborers. Both those who were enslaved or indentured faced worse treatment, and those freed faced less ability to make a future for themselves. Persons of European and African descent fought in the first phase of Bacon's Rebellion against members of native tribes, and then in the second phase of Bacon's Rebellion against the British ruling elite. Nathaniel Bacon ultimately died from wounds that he received in a battle, and England sent troops into the colony, and that eventually quashed the rebellion. But not without having made a significant impression upon those who wielded authority and were threatened by this rebellion. Remember, this rebellion lasted over a year, and records from lawmakers in Virginia to the Legal Oversight Authority in England revealed that over 30% of the population were in support of the rebellion. Here were the lessons from Bacon's Rebellion. A united labor force is a threat to the form of capitalism taking hold within the colonies. Virginia lawmakers wrote letters to the Oversight Authority in London explaining that they intended to pursue a divide and conquer strategy in order to prevent future rebellion. It's only after Bacon's Rebellion that we see the emergence of white people as a group of humanity. Let's think about this for a minute. 1681, some lawmakers invent a new label for a group of people. Imagine, if you will, just for a second, for fun here, that I'm a lawmaker, and I just pass a law claiming that 3/4 of you in this room are crunchies. Okay? So 3/4 of you are crunchies, and the other quarter of you are not. Who gives a damn? Who would care? Some silly lawmaker came up with a label for you. It's really unlikely that it would mean much. But let's say I follow it with this. Those who are crunchies, you can pay no more than $25 a night for that hotel. No more. Those who are crunchies are the first to come into any room at this conference and the first to leave. The first in line at the bathroom, at lunch, at any other line that forms, and the first to get to leave. And that these privileges and advantages that come by virtue of this label that I asserted upon you as a lawmaker continues when you walk out these doors. That it shapes how you are treated and what you get to do for years and years to come. Imagine you're one of the crunchies. Imagine how you might start to feel. Wow, I must be special. Imagine you're not a crunchy. Wow, what's wrong with me?
Okay. Now do you see the difference in the whites? The majority of the room were white people, and the 1/4 were not. And she was going to go further into, about, how people feel about whatever. Okay, but it just goes to show you that when the lessons learned in Bacon's rebellion, okay, brought about the Willie Lynch doctrine, right? Let me see if I can. Let me see, where is it at? I'm going to see if I got it. I don't know if I got it. I doubt it, but I'm going to see if I got it. Willie Lynch doctrine. Hold on. No, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. Salakia. That's not it. Wow, what's that? Damn, I ain't seen that in a while. Wow, damn, that's a World War III video. Oh, yep. United States semi-quincentennial, yep. Okay. Yep, 250th anniversary, yep, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, let's go. Willie Lynch doctrine. What's that? Uh-oh. Yep. Israelite news. Where is that Willie Lynch doctrine? Damn it. I know I put it in here. No. Is that it? Oh, no. That's through salvation, white stone, acquittal in favor. Right. Okay. Damn. I can't get the where is it, man? I know, whatever. This is what I'm gonna do. Salakia. Let's go over here. Willie Lynch doctrine. Boom. Willie Lynch letter. The making of a slave, right? Salakia. Ah, shit. I went the wrong channel. Page, whatever. Jim Crow in the museum, whatever. Okay. Alrighty. Is Willie Lynch's letter real? If it is real, it is one of the most important documents related to African Americans. Okay. Right? Check this out. Wow. Is that it? I long ago stopped listening to sentences that begin with the problem with black people is or end with, and that's why black people can't get ahead now. In the few years since the speech on how to train slaves first appeared, it has been cited by countless college students and black members of the House of Representatives along the way, becoming the essential verbal footnote in barbershop analysis of what's wrong with black people. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Wow. Okay, so what was that? Oh, whatever. That's not it either. Jam. Willie Lynch letter and the making of a slave. I'm trying to see if I can get it. How they control slaves. Willie Lynch letter. Whatever, man. I'm trying to find a copy of it so I can show it to you. But it's very difficult to find, evidently. They don't want that information out there for people to just read it. I don't see why not, but they don't want anybody else to know anything about it. Fuck it, man. YouTube.
The Blackness Podcast is an informative conversation.
Whatever, man. Okay. Anyway, I did the best I could. Try to bring some enlightenment to what's going on.
Wrong with me. This is not fair. Let's return to the divide and conquer strategy. Laborers, prior and through Bacon's Rebellion, were united. They lived the same darn lives. They faced the same opportunities, rights, and privileges once they were freed from enslavement or free from indenture. That's about to change. A slew of laws were passed in the decades after Bacon's Rebellion and continued to get passed into the first quarter of the next century. The first slew of laws included the prohibition of free blacks from holding public office, the prohibition of blacks and native tribal members from marrying whites, the requirement that whites, upon completion of their terms of service, be paid goods including guns and gunpowder, a prohibition of free blacks possessing a weapon. We're going to come back to that. The prohibition of blacks testifying against whites. These laws began to give different meaning to these labels that prior to this moment just referenced where your nation of origin was. Not anymore. I want to return quickly to the law that prohibited free blacks from possessing a weapon. What this law did was essentially strip free black men of their ability to hold patriarchal power. Because look, under the law of coverture, here's how things worked. Men were in control, controlled women, their spouse, controlled their children, and had legal authority to do so, including severe beatings, all financial assets and land. The man had the control, but the exchange was that in exchange for that authority, he protects. That's the trade-off for patriarchal power. Stripped, made impossible by virtue of this law. And then let's look at this law that prohibited blacks from testifying against whites. We will see that throughout U.S. history. Mexicans prohibited from testifying against whites. Chinese prohibited from testifying against whites. And then it just becomes mongrels, the label, to include persons of Japanese descent and the like. So that's a law that we see throughout U.S. history. When you look at these laws, what's the message to white people?
White supremacy, right? And from generation to generation to generation, okay, that's all they fucking know. They teach their children that you're superior to anybody that's brown or black. That's what, okay? And the Willie Lynch letter, I wish I had a copy of it. I could read you a copy of it. If you wait for a couple of seconds, I'm going to see if I can. So like you. See if I got a copy. Because I wrote down an actual copy of the Willie Lynch letter because I knew something was going to happen to where I couldn't keep it or have it on the internet. I tried to take a picture of it. Honestly, I really did. Hold on, is that it? No. Okay, it should have Willie Lynch letter on it, big as shit. Okay. Hold on, let me see. Okay. If you just hold on for a second, work with me, because I was going to read to you about the information I found about the Willie Lynch letter. It's crazy, man. I'm like, man, are these people serious? They're fucking serious, man. These motherfuckers are insane. They really are, man. And this is the way they've treated us for decades, for centuries. Okay? You know, it ain't our fight to the white woman look at us as beautiful, and they want to beat us. How the fuck is that? You know, that's our fault. No, I don't think it's in this one. Let me see. Trying to find it on the Willie Lynch letter. Yeah, I think this is it, because I put it all in one book. Yep, this is it. Willie Lynch letter. Haha, found it. Haha. I wrote this off the internet a couple of years ago before the International Defense Force and the Israeli Mossad took over. So I'm going to read it to you. That's all I can do. I tried to show it to you, but I can't do anything. Making of a Slave, 1712 AD, the Willie Lynch letter. Okay, here it goes. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. These methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. What is it? Take this simple list of differences and think about them. On top of my list is age, but it's only there because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There's intelligence, size, sex, sizes of plantation, status on the plantation, attitude of owners, whether the slaves in the valley, on a hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action, but before that, I will assure you that distrust is stronger than trust and envy, stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slave receiving this indoctrination shall carry this on generating for hundreds of self-refueling, self-hating years, maybe even thousands of years. Don't forget, you pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. Okay? The female versus the male. You must use this. The male versus the female. You must use also a white overseer who distrusts all blacks. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are our keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay? That's the Willie Lynch letter. Now you just heard it straight out of the mouth of Willie fucking Lynch. Okay? All right? Let's go to Daniel chapter 12. Daniel chapter 12. Okay. Verse 4. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Right? And the reason why this information is being brought to you live on Living Technicolor is for you to understand where the social construct of black and white were created and why. Now you've got proof on a video breaking down what was the mindset of the elite at that time that were financed the transatlantic, the sub-Saharan, and the reverse triangular slave trades in order to bring in fine hair, coarse hair. Okay, the coarse hair, okay, are the Negroes. The fine hair are the Indians. Okay? Brown versus black. Black versus brown. Male versus female. Old versus young. Okay? They turned us against each other for 500 fucking years. That's the reason why so-called blacks don't trust each other. And that's the reason why so-called blacks, we don't trust each other. The Indians don't trust us. And the Mexicans have turned against us. Okay? Real talk. They did this shit deliberately and on purpose to us. Okay? Through the Willie Lynch doctrine. Let's go to Revelation. And this information is being brought to you by the forwarding of the Holy Spirit through righteous men. Let's make a pit stop. Let's stop at Isaiah chapter 30. If I can find it. Oh, let's go back the other way. Verse 20. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 20. And though the Lord give you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet shall not thy teachers be removed into a corner any more, but thine eyes shall see thy teachers. And thine ears shall hear a word behind thee, saying, This is the way, walk ye in it, when ye turn to the right hand, or when ye turn to the left. Right? And so that's what we're doing in the position of teachers, to teach you the way you should go. Okay? Where is that? Now I think it was in Isaiah 19. Verse 20. And it shall be for a sign and for a witness unto the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt, America, spiritual Sodom and Egypt, for they shall cry unto the Lord because of the oppressors, and he shall send them a Savior and a great one, and he shall deliver them. And the Lord shall be known to Egypt, and the Egyptians shall know the Lord in that day, and shall do sacrifice and oblation. Yep, they shall vow a vow unto the Lord and perform it. Okay, it's the same thing where it says in Isaiah 14, 1 and 2. Okay, it says the same thing in the book of Ecclesiasticus chapter 41. Okay, where the children will complain of an ungodly father, for they shall be reproached for his sake. What is reproach? Shame. Okay, that's what shame, reproach is. Let's go get it. Because I tried to get a copy of the Willie Lynch Doctrine for you, but it wouldn't pop up. Salakia, let me see. Reproach. Boom. Definition. Reproach. to address someone in such a way as to express disapproval or disappointment. Rebuke, reproof, admonishment, admonition, scolding, reprimand, lecture, upbraiding. That's what we do by teachers no longer being put into a corner, but we stand on street corners risking our lives and freedom by criticizing and upbraiding the wickedness of what these people have done. That's what this video is about. Right? Okay, hold on. Wow, man. Okay. All right, now let's go over here to, I had to stop and make a pit stop on that one. Go to Revelation chapter 13, verse 9. Right? If any man hath an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. In other words, these Edomite Caucasians, because they enslaved us for 500 years, are going to go into enslavement for 1,000. Let's go prove it. Psalms 149. Let's start at verse 2. Let Israel rejoice in him that made him. Let the children of Zion be joyful in their king. Let them praise his name in the dance. Let them sing praises unto him with the timbrel and harp. For the Lord taketh pleasure in his people, who are Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay? The tribe of Judah, and the tribe of Israel. Because, like it says in Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 33, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together. All that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. To this day, they refuse to let us go, man. They still have us. Okay, look, in the Dred Scott case, okay, let me see if I can find proof on the Dred Scott case for you right quick. Is it this way? Dred Scott. I think it's at the bottom, man. Is that the new one? Yep, it's the other way. Boom, boom. Dred Scott case. Salakia. About the Dred Scott case. If I can find it. Trying to find it. Damn. I got a lot of receipts I could add in here. That's for sure. Dred Scott. There it is. Is that it? Hold on, wait. There it is. Boom. Okay? The Dred Scott case, the case in which the United States Supreme Court held that descendants of Africans who were imported into this country and sold as slaves were not included nor intended to be included under the word citizens in the Constitution, whether emancipated or not, and remained without rights or privileges except such as those which the government might grant them. Okay? Blacks are not considered citizens. They are still considered slaves by the government. Okay? That's real shit. Okay? Again, Jeremiah 50 and 33. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together. All that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. Their Redeemer is strong. The Lord of hosts is his name. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. He shall thoroughly plead their cause. And to plead means to punish. Let's get it. He shall thoroughly plead their cause, right? Okay. Strive, contend with words, conduct a case or a suit, make a complaint, to quarrel, to contend with. Right? Primitive root, properly to toss, i.e. to grapple. Mostly figuratively, to wrangle, i.e. to hold a controversy, to defend, right? To strive against. Okay. He shall thoroughly plead their cause, that he may give rest to the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon. Right? Now, let's go to Isaiah chapter 49, last verse. And I will feed them that oppress thee with their own flesh, and they shall be drunken with their own blood as with sweet wine. So that's all these Edomites, okay, are going to get to eat is flesh and blood. And you can see that from the Epstein list. That's all these motherfuckers eat is baby intestines and shit. The shit out of babies' intestines. They eat babies and drink their blood. So all these motherfuckers are going to eat as slaves for 1,000 years. I will feed them that oppress thee with their own flesh, and they shall be drunken with their own blood as with sweet wine. And all flesh shall know that I am the Lord, thy Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. Why didn't it say the mighty one of Esau? Why didn't it say the mighty one of Moab, the mighty one of Ammon? How about the mighty one of Ishmael? Huh? Because the Most High Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai brought only one nation of people out of the land of Egypt. Those are the people he's going to redeem back unto himself through his only begotten son, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, whom the world ignorantly calls Jebus Crossed. Long hair, blonde hair, blue eyes, dishwater blonde hair, pink skin, right? Where the Bible actually depicts the Son of the Most High God to look nothing like that. Okay? The biblical scriptures depict the Son of God to look like this. Okay? Okay? See? This ain't him. This ain't him. Ain't no way. This is him. This is what the Son of God looks like when you see him, right? He has, okay, Revelation chapter 1 and 14. And the hairs of his head were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were of a flame of fire, and his hands and feet were as fine brass, as though it's burned in a furnace, and his voice the sound of many waters. Which of these images depict the description? See? So whenever you get done, man, the mighty one of Jacob. Okay. Now, if we go back to, like I said before, in Revelation chapter 13, verse 9, if any man hath an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity, and he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Okay, who are the saints? Uh-oh, well, let's go find out. So this way we can be sure who the saints are. Right? Uh-oh. Let's go get, where was I at? Psalms 148 and 14. Right? He also exalteth the horn of his people, the praise of all his saints, even of the children of Israel. A people near unto him, praise ye the Lord. Why does it keep saying the children of Israel? Why does it keep saying the Israelites? It doesn't say a goddamn thing about Israeli, does it? It would say Israeli. So who changed the name from Israelite to Israeli? Who authorized that change? The Catholic Church, ran by Edomites? Caucasian devils? Really? Okay. Get the fuck out of here, man. See? So going back to Psalms 149, verse 4. For the Lord taketh pleasure in his people. He will beautify the meek with salvation. Let the saints, his people, the children of Israel, a people near unto him, be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. Let the high praises of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai be in their mouth and a two-edged sword in their hand. Right? That's us on the street corners. Let thy teachers no longer be removed into a corner anymore, but thine eyes shall see thy teachers on street corners risking their lives in freedom to tell you the truth to your face. Right? With the praises of the Most High God in their mouth. Right? Kal halal Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Ba'ashem Rahaba Kakadash. Right? blessings to the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Holy Spirit, right? And a two-edged sword in their hand to upbraid and to verbally plead against our enemies, right? Okay, because the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through the Most High to the pulling down of strongholds, right? I'm finna go get that one next, right? Okay, let's go get that one then. See? Okay, pulling down of, right? 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. We don't have any guns or bullets. Okay? We have a Bible. Okay? Are not carnal, but mighty through the Most High, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of the Most High God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Hamashiach. Okay? And that's our job. The strongholds is evangelical Christianity and white supremacy and white privilege. These are strongholds in the mind of these Edomite Caucasians, that they're better than everybody else. That's what the video is about. Casting down the imaginations of anything that exalted themselves against the knowledge of the Most High. And the knowledge of the Most High is his inheritance, his people, the praise of all his saints, even of the children of Israel. Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay? Now, we've just proved through the Willie Lynch doctrine, these bastards were sent a letter to keep us down for centuries and to make us destroy ourselves from within. Why do you think they put guns and bullets and shit and drugs in our neighborhoods? We're not bringing it in there. White people are bringing that shit and dropping it off and selling it to young black men. And then young black men sell it to their own people. And then the police come and arrest the young black men that bought the drugs from the white people, right? That brought the drugs into the United States, okay? All right? And they're sent to prison. And they get free slave labor because they're immediately in violation of the 14th Amendment or the amendments of whatever have you under the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves, so-called, but emancipation simply means the transfer of private ownership of slaves to public ownership. That's it. That's all it means. The moving of one people from one location to another. What the fuck? Anyway, I guess I'm hungry, I guess. But anyway, we're, okay. Psalms 149, verse 7. To execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings and with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. The people are people near unto him, right? The children of Israel. Praise ye the Lord. Amen. Okay? So these devils, they got a lot to pay for, man. Let's go to Obadiah. Chapter 1. Okay. Verse 3. The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high. It says the same thing in the book of Job. Okay. They were the children of fools. Yep, the children of base men. They were viler than the earth. Right? That saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? This entire video was about the pride of racial pride. Racial pride of these Edomite devils. They're proud to be Americans. They're proud to be maggots, Magaites, parasites. That's what they're proud of. But the children of these parasites, okay, let's go get Ecclesiasticus. Let's go get Ecclesiasticus on these punks, man. Ecclesiasticus, the book of Rock, chapter 41, right? Verse 5. The children of sinners are abominable children, and they that are conversant in the dwelling of the ungodly. They're conversing in the dwelling of the ungodly because that's all they do is they talk about us behind our backs. What do you think white people talk about when you ain't around? So-called white people. Okay? Like Miss Jacqueline Badalora said, white people were created in 1681. Right? The inheritance of sinners' children shall perish. What is the inheritance of sinners' children? Right? White privilege. Right? And their posterity shall have a perpetual reproach. Now, we just found out reproach means perpetual shame. Okay? Right? Then why do you think Donald Trump is trying to shut down the National Museum of American History? Okay? Why do you think he's trying to shut down the Museum of Black History? Okay? Trying to shut it down. If he hadn't done it already. Trying to create a new narrative that white people are great. Okay? Now we understand by watching this video and a breakdown why they believe that. Okay? Which is a fucking lie. Like she started the video. Okay? The children will complain of an ungodly father, for they shall be reproached for his sake. They shall be shamed for his sake. Because a long time ago, like Mitch McConnell said back in 2018, 2018 or 2020, he said that we can't be held accountable for the sins of our forefathers and the things that they done 150, 120 years ago. See, why would he say that 120 years ago? Because he knows that the Bible states, okay, in Exodus chapter 20, verse 3, okay, that, you know, from generation to generation, because a generation is 40 years, the children of wickedness come back in their lot, okay, every third and fourth generation. So that's anywhere between 120 to 160 years they come back and partake in their wickedness. So the devils that are in control of power right now were in control of power and setting up all of this bullshit back then. Okay, and through Freemasonry, the Illuminati and Luciferian magic, right, and the worship of Baal, eating of flesh and drinking of blood of little children, they're still doing that same shit they did 160 years ago. They're doing the same thing today in order to continue to keep power. I mean, come on, man. It's all over the goddamn internet now. Okay? Woe be unto you, ungodly men, which have forsaken the law of the Most High God. For if ye increase, it shall be to your destruction. And if ye be born, ye shall be born to a curse. And if ye die, a curse shall be your portion. Okay? So if you be born, you should be born into a curse. So the individuals that had slaves and owned slaves 160 years ago are back to reap the benefits of the enslavement. Okay? And they were born into a curse. So they're going to be left here and melted, destroyed by the Son of the Most High God, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai's only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. Right? Okay? Left here and melted, burnt to a crisp. And then when they come in the reincarnation, they'll be born as slaves. That's the curse. The curses of Deuteronomy are being turned upon our enemies and our adversaries. All right? All that are of the earth shall turn to earth again, so the ungodly shall go from a curse to destruction. Right? So it tells you that all that are of the earth shall turn to earth again. So your body's going to be turned to ashes, dust to dust. Like it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 7. The body turns to ashes and dust as it was before. Let's go get it, because I'm finna cut it up. So let's go get Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 7. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. So there's no hell where you burn forever. That's bullshit. Your spirit is in the spirit realm. It doesn't feel anything, and it's made of spiritual energy, which burns hotter, spiritual energy or fire. It would be like a summertime day going swimming in a swimming pool. Okay? You'd be enjoying yourself. Okay? Because you're in the spirit. That's the reason why hell doctrine doesn't make any fucking sense. The hell that the Bible is making reference to is the hell of dust and worms, where you would be in Sheol, in the grave, 6 feet under, and your body would turn to ashes and dust. Okay? And be eaten by worms. Okay? That's the hell. But if you try to explain that to a Christian, they'll say, that ain't what I was taught. You know, fuck all that bullshit, man. But I read the Willie Lynch letter to you, and I have another letter I want to read to you. So that their own tongues shall fall upon themselves. Right? Let's go get 1 Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 7. Salakia. He said, woe is me, wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people and the holy city, and to dwell there where it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, in the sanctuary into the hand of strangers. Her temple is become as a man without glory. Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity, which are the people. Her infants are slain in the streets, her young men with the sword of the enemy. What nation hath not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? Right? That's the reason why all the heathen nations, okay, along with the Edomites, are going to go into slavery for 1,000 years. We have to teach these devils to stop worshiping a goddamn, walking around in a circle, worshiping a giant tent. In the center of this giant tent is a rock, and a portal at the end of this rock around this tent that looks like a giant pussy, and they say that that's the portal, okay, of to go and speak to the Lord, or whatever, how that Islamic bullshit goes. Okay? Right? Psalm 64 and 8. Sorry, I had to wait so long to give all the video, or no, tuck it back. It was 64. 60, god damn it. 64 and 8. Salakia. So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. And all men shall fear and declare the work of the Most High, for they shall wisely consider of his doing. Okay? So after they go into slavery, that's what's going to, but right now they're telling on themselves through the Epstein list and everything, right? The righteous shall be glad in the Lord and shall trust in him, and all the upright in heart shall glory. So we're going to be happy that these devils have been driven from before us as slaves for what they've done to us. Listen to this. We do not halt Israel's genocide because we are, as Americans, are Israel, infected with the same white supremacy and intoxicated by our domination of the globe and the power to obliterate others with our advanced weaponry. The vaunted democratic values, morality, and respect for human rights claimed by Israel and the United States has always been a lie. Okay? See? It's always been a lie, man. Okay? It's always been a lie. The real credo is this: we have everything, and if you try to take it from us, we will unalive you. People of color, especially when they are vulnerable, do not count. Okay, so we went to the Dred Scott case. Well, that brings that into fruition. They don't count because we're not counted as citizens. We're still considered property. Okay? Their hopes, dignity, and aspirations for those outside the empire are worthless. Global domination will be sustained through racialized violence. You see that in the street right now, right? Racialized violence, big as shit. The lie that democracy is predicated on liberty is when the Palestinians and those in the global south, as well as Native Americans, black and brown Americans, not to mention those in the Middle East, have known for decades. Okay? Democracy is based on racialized violence. And they just gave you a laundry list of all the individuals that know this and have known this for decades. All praises to the Most High Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Yahweh Kakadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for Shalom.